Hey, what's happening? Welcome back to my channel. My name is D, and today I'm going to be talking about the contentification of literature. But before we get into all of that, I got to give a quick shout out to my Plus Ultra Don't Fretters, my top tier supporters on Patreon, JJ Valdez, Laughing Cat Dog, and Peggy Lou Who. Thank you for supporting the channel and helping to ensure I'm able to put out as much content as I possibly can. If you also want to support the channel and gain access to exclusive content you won't find anywhere else and access to my private Discord server, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon at patreon.com/don'tfret_. If not, no worries, but please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Okay, so a little while ago, I was trying to think of what I wanted to talk about in a video. You know, I was like, okay, I got time to write something. And I had two ideas. It was either this or the toxic messages in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I put out a poll on my Patreon, and my patrons voted, and this is what they voted for, so there you go. About a year and a half ago, I started my channel as a booktuber. I'm trying to broaden my horizons a little bit, and I may have just shot myself in the foot a little bit reviewing Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. It's fine. We don't have to worry about that right now. I'll worry about it later. And something I said a lot in the early days of my videos was the term, the contentification of literature. And maybe it's a little too early in the video for a tangent, but whatever. I'm a yapper. I think it's kind of funny that my review of Onyx Storm is doing pretty good for a nobody. I got a couple hundred new subscribers, and people are going back and like watching my old videos and commenting on them, arguing with me about things I straight up like don't remember saying. Like, I know I said it, it's on video, but I just don't remember. So I'm just like, what are we talking about? Like, by the time you're watching this, I don't remember saying it. Right here, right now, what you're watching, I don't remember saying it. As soon as I hit publish, that shit is out of my head, dog. And if I were to like go back and re-review some of these books or reread these books or even watch some of my old videos, I probably wouldn't agree with myself because people change, times change. I just think it's funny that there are people who are like, yeah, this video is almost 2 years old. I'm gonna still argue with this because I'm bored. In those earlier videos, what I meant by that term was it seemed like a lot of book talk darlings were kind of an extension of book talk. It seemed like a lot of book talk darlings were pretty similar or like derivative of each other somehow. Like everybody was seeing this one book succeed, probably Akatar, and without really investigating why their books were successful, they were just like, I'm gonna do that too. And me as well on that trope, thank you. I'm gonna have an edgy shadow boo as well. I'm already going off notes. It's an off day for me, I guess. One of the other reasons why I think that was happening is also because readers liked how familiar some of these things were. They didn't want like new shit all the time. The familiarity was comfortable. I think book talk really blew up around lockdown. You know, when people were staying inside a little bit more, you need something comfortable. I don't know. I'm not a historian. I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying. And obviously this is a generalization, but it seemed to me like a lot of the book talk darlings are sort of Akatar meets Hunger Games and or Harry Potter and something else. Lots of blank slate protagonists that readers can project themselves onto without like depth or nuance or even distinct personality traits beyond really liking books. Lots of trope-based marketing, which led to some books feeling like a checklist of tropes that they're just trying to get to because they know those ones are popular right now. Other times, like full-on lies, you know what I'm saying? Like, you think you're getting enemies to lovers, and it turns out you're getting a colonizer romance that's loosely based on an Avatar ship that shouldn't be. And I don't have time to get into all this right now, but I feel like sometimes when people say that a book is really tropey, what they mean is like the author in question relied on you just liking that trope enough that it's there and that's what makes it good, and the trope itself isn't really executed well or in an interesting way. Yeah, sometimes it can really feel like tropes, character archetypes, even settings or like types of fantastical magical powers are just like hashtags or trending sounds on TikTok or wherever people are posting now. Was it Red Note or something? I don't know. I'm here. And I think whether we're talking about traditionally published books, which is what we usually talk about on this channel, or independently published books, we can kind of see this happening. Right now, at least in regards to like romantasy or YA fantasy or new adult fantasy, which again is kind of what I've ended up covering a lot of in this channel, and also why I'm trying to like do other shit now. It seems like a lot of publishers are more interested in rehashing what they know sells, what they know is hot, instead of trying to find the next big thing. And I could be wrong. I often am. And obviously, like, this doesn't hold true for like really big authors. I feel like they'll just let Brandon Sanderson do whatever he wants. I don't know because I won't read them, but yeah. But like that makes sense to me kind of, right? Because publishing is a business, and you want to try to make sure that you have like a really good ROI. You want to make the most and spend the least. That's not financial advice, by the way. I'm not a businessman. And indie authors that are basically just like one person publishing teams, they gotta like do what they can to try to get readers. And obviously I'm like making assumptions because I'm not an indie author, but I would imagine that there's a lot of like trying to see what's going on in the industry and like trying to find a way to stand out, but also catch people's attention through something that's familiar and that's got to be really stressful. You know what I'm saying? And it just seems like to me, again, I'm not like an expert. I'm not a literary scholar. I'm not an anthropologist. I'm not a smart guy, but it seems like social media is having this effect on the publishing industry, on like media in general. So you got people like kind of copying each other, ripping each other off, using the same tropes over and over again, same character archetypes, at least in the specific genres that I mentioned before. And it seems like social media is having this effect on like books, publishing, definitely other forms of media too, like certainly music, comedy, movies, kind of. And it just feels like we're blurring the lines between content and art. I know the title of the video is literature, but I feel like what I'm talking about right now could apply to other art forms, not just the written word, but like music, comedy, painting, whatever. Before I go further down this rabbit trail, I feel like I should explain what I mean. I know some people who hate watch me, which makes no sense to me. This has to be like painful. Why would you do this to yourself? Get a better hobby, dog. Go for a walk. Meet up with your friends. Go to a winery. Do a tasting. Get some charcuterie or something. That sounds way more fun than watching some bozo you hate yap. Why would you do that? That's crazy. Or engage with my videos in bad faith, have already decided that I am a pretentious liberal woke fuck. So like, they don't care where I'm coming from. They're just like gonna grasp onto some random phrase that I said wrong and send me an essay that I'm not gonna read. I do think that shit's funny though, because I don't think I'm smart. I'm not a learned man. I barely finished high school. I didn't finish college. I used to call my book review series Book Reviews with a Regular Dude because A, it rhymed, B, to indicate that I know I'm not a literary scholar. I get these motherfuckers coming through trying to debate me, sending me novels longer than the shit I review. It's like, hey buddy, I'm not reading all that. Anyways, for the rest of you, I figure I'll just like kind of elaborate on what I mean because, content and art could mean different things to you than they do to me. And then maybe what I say next won't make a lot of sense. So when I say content, I mean like content on the internet. It's like any information or media shared, created, or stored online. I usually think of like a blog post, a YouTube video, a TikTok, or something like that. Like for me personally, with like videos like this, I guess what I would say is this is content, even though I put a lot of like effort and thought into, even though I'm not that smart, I'd be putting thought into things. Into these videos, I don't put like my heart and soul into most of them, you know what I'm saying? I'm not like expressing something super deep. That's kind of like the main difference to me, I guess, but I'll get into that more as the video goes on. Art, I think, is harder to define. I feel like this is embarrassing, but like, okay, you want to know something kind of cringe? When I was like a teenager, if you were to ask me at like 17 to define art, I would have said like a lifestyle or something stupid like that. Like, what a douchebag. And culturally, it's not really agreed upon what constitutes art. And I'm not going to try to argue that. I don't argue. I feel like that's a waste of time, personally. And this isn't meant to be that kind of video where I'm like, this is art and this isn't, and these aren't real writers. They're just content creators with a publishing deal or something like that, Because like art is art. Because art is art regardless of the quality. So I can think that Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros is poor quality, but it is still art. it's still literature in the same way that a Big Mac is still food. And there are like so many dictionary definitions of art. I feel like sometimes when people want to make arguments, they use the dictionary like it's this immutable, unquestionable resource. But sometimes those definitions aren't used like colloquially. You know what I'm saying? Like they mean something different in everyday conversation, and people usually know that. But I really like this definition that I stumbled across like a while ago. Something that is created with imagination and skill that is beautiful or expresses important ideas. And while any art can be content because like it was shared online, created online or something, not all content is art. And again, I'm not like stroking a beard I can't grow with a monocle and being like, yes, literature. I feel like I didn't even put this in my notes the way that I'm thinking about it now. And I've been working on this all day. What I'm trying to get at is that I think authors and artists are pressured more and more to feed the content beast, and the art they produce suffers in like depth and quality.
Audie, what's the content beast?
I'm glad you asked. The content beast is the social media industrial complex. I don't know what your experience with social media has been. Mine was like, it was this fun thing at first where I could like see what my friends were up to. I used to love Instagram because I unironically wanted to know what my boy Gavin was gonna have for lunch. Pizza again? You crazy for this one, Gav. I'm not friends with that dude anymore though. And then I guess like influencers started to emerge and people started to get famous off of social media. Like I think the first ones I heard about, because I wasn't like super tapped in with what was going on in like popular culture back in the day, be like Shawn Mendes or Cardi B. The narrative around social media started to change. It became less about the social and more about the media. So it became this like, oh, come on over here, post here. You know, all it takes is one post and then you're famous. Then your dreams come true. And I don't know when this started to happen. Meta and TikTok and all these other big companies started creating like a reach problem. And then they'd offer you the solution to the problem that they created, telling you to post like every day, multiple times a day. That's how you blow up. And now you're working for them for free, contributing to this huge pile of content that they can use to entice more users, more consumers, more people to post. So the pile keeps getting bigger, and you're doing all that for nothing except the promise of maybe you'll get your dreams. And I'm not trying to mock or belittle anybody. Like, I'm not making fun of someone who feels like they got caught in that at some point. I got caught in that. I'm doing that right here, right now. And like, boy, oh boy, do I not recommend content creation. I don't think I'm going to be doing this in 2026. I would be shocked if I was still doing this in 2026, honestly. Like, don't do this. Don't do it. Unless you like love some aspect of it, I wouldn't recommend it. I used to be like friends with like big-ish TikTokers. Like, I don't know what is a couple 100,000 followers big. They would tell me a lot to just like post more, post every day, post multiple times a day or whatever. One day, I'd be a successful artist. And there were a couple problems with that, and maybe that's a separate video. But like the people who are telling me this are like pretty cisgendered, able-bodied, white creators. I'm like two of those things. And the other thing is like any content that I like made that did better than usual, more than 500 views on TikTok, which if you know TikTok, that's like not a lot, had nothing to do with my art, like at all. Yeah, maybe this isn't the video where I talk about how you can be anything you want to be is a lie they fed to older Gen Z and millennials. And it's even more of a lie for like marginalized people within those demographics. Okay, before I get back to my notes, I do just want to say that I also, in the same vein, think that it's kind of dope that the internet and social media breaks down a lot of barriers, and like people have been given the keys to the gate. There are some people who become like big musicians and they didn't have to wait for somebody to like discover them and put them on the radio. Or there's people who end up getting to make the movies that they want to make because people like their sketches and then they support them making a film. Or, you know, like people become stand-up comedians full-time or become independent authors or whatever. And I think that's all really cool. That's like the bright side to what I'm talking about. I'm going back to the
dark side.
That was stupid. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm losing it sometimes, man. The idea that people need a platform, they got to build their platform in order to have an audience to like be a writer, musician, comedian, filmmaker, whatever, has all these people scrambling to create content around their work or create content promoting themselves as a brand that they can then maybe leverage in order to be able to do this other thing that they'd rather do. And I don't want to be like a conspiracy theorist and be like social media is a scam, but like, yo, that shit's kind of a scam. Also, moose aren't real and you're not ready for that truth. And like in this part of the video, I am making the assumption that people who write books or want to be writers or comedians, whatever, are doing so because they're passionate about that thing. But I can just like feel somebody typing, not every writer is passionate about writing or something like that. While that might be true, I don't feel like that's relevant or important to what I'm saying right now. Like you could want to write a book because you grew up loving reading and you've just always thought that it'd be really cool to hold a book you wrote in your hands. You could want to write a book or be a published author because you want to be the next Sarah J. Maas or J.K. Rowling. You could want to write a book because you're trying to prove something to an ex. But guess what? They're not watching. They've moved on with Eric and they don't care what you do now. The reasons for why somebody might want to be a published author or a full-time artist of some kind doesn't really matter. It's like, you know, you could romanticize being a writer or you could romanticize writing. Either way, it kind of doesn't really matter right now. Like someone's reasons for writing may not seem valid to you, but they're valid to them, and that's kind of what matters. Okay, so some problems with the contentification of literature, art, and media. As I said before, content creation takes work. It's time and it's energy, and time is not a renewable resource. And when the responsibility of promoting your work or promoting yourself as a brand falls onto you, you need to spend some of that finite time making content. And that's time you could spend writing. Like if you're anything like me, you have things on your schedule that are non-negotiable. You got family, you got kids, you got a job maybe, you got to eat, you got to sleep, and then there's like not a lot left for creative endeavors unless that's your job. So this is like one problem with the problem, unless you don't see any of that as a problem for whatever reason. Another problem, and personally I see this as like the bigger problem, Content Beast has an insatiable appetite. We call that the algorithm. You can lay your entire life on the altar of this unappeasable god, and it still may not be enough for it to bestow a blessing upon you. Trying to appease the algorithm is like constantly shoveling coal into the firebox. And if you stop shoveling for like a second just to wipe the sweat off of your brow, the engine stops, the momentum dies. And what if the train never moves again? Oh no! So if you want the algorithm to like bring your work to new readers and you want to stay relevant, you gotta pump out those books like stupid fast. Like a book a year or even faster than that sometimes. And then some people can totally do that, you know, like they can write fast, their process is streamlined, whatever. I'm not saying like you gotta wait at least 2 years or something like that. I don't care. I just think that there are other books that I feel like get really rushed. You know, some of the books that we've reviewed, especially like the sequels in series that I started, those books feel rushed quite often. For some, it just doesn't seem like enough time to really go through the developmental editing process. It's like there's no time to make the stories as good as they possibly can be. We got to get this shit out yesterday. But the first book only came out yesterday. And I'm talking about like traditionally published authors, especially with like big publishing companies when I say that. I don't know like a ton of indie authors personally. I'm not like intimately familiar with the process of like putting out a series as an independent publisher. I feel like I should probably ask one of the ones that I do talk to though. But I would imagine that like unless your book fucking blew up and you're just getting new readers every single day, like really naturally, and they're just coming like it's a revenue stream flowing like a mighty river, you might need to release somewhat regularly to appease like whatever algorithms. I was gonna say Amazon's algorithm. I guess that like that's one. What's the other one? Ingram Spark? Is that right? Someone's gonna be like, you fucking moron. I feel like I should know this, but I don't. But it feels like, yeah, everybody's trying to appease the algorithm everybody's trying to stay relevant. Yeah, I just wish that there was more time for authors to make their stories the best they can be. I don't know what that is. Like, that's not my call to make. It's happened enough times where like a sequel comes out and it feels rushed. Or even a debut comes out and it feels rushed. And like, I know, again, my hate watchers won't believe me. I don't know why you're still here. This is crazy. Some of the books that I've reviewed in the past have like cool ideas or interesting premises. I don't think that they're always executed super well. I wish there was more time taken in the developmental editing process. Because I guess like you have your whole life to write your first book. Your second book, you got like 8 months. No, thank you. I don't want to do that. I see this not just with like books, but I've definitely seen it with music. I don't know if anybody knows who the musical artist Nick D is, but that dude used to post a song a week, and I think he did that for like a couple years. And in his book, You Don't Want It Bad Enough, he explains that that's how he succeeded in the music business. He appeased the algorithm. He fed the content beast. His whole musical artistry is centered around content, not the music, not because he felt like he had something he wanted to say through his music, not because he wanted to like impact somebody through his music, not because he loved rapping or singing or anything like that. Those are all probably true, but the center is content. They all bow to the king on the throne. Content. And this isn't like inherently wrong. This isn't a moral issue. I just find it interesting because if we go back to books, it feels like a lot of book talk sensation books aren't really saying anything, and they're also kind of written around content. And maybe that's fine. You know, in my creative writing classes, I usually tell students that there's a lot of songs that are good, but they are essentially just like have a good barbecue, and you need have a good barbecue songs. So maybe we're in the era of have a good barbecue books. I don't know. That's probably a cookbook. Now that I say it out loud. Yo, what if I reviewed a cookbook? That'd be fun, right? No, it probably wouldn't be. Nobody wants to watch you cook, you dumb fuck. Usually when I say that to my students, the songs that I'm thinking of may not have like the deepest messaging or like explore the human condition of like loss and heartbreak or something like that. But they're usually not lacking in quality. Whereas in my opinion, a lot of times the books that I've reviewed are. I think a lot of them could have benefited from a little bit more time, a little bit more care and attention. And it just seems like the publishers that pump out like all these like book talk romantasy books don't care. They just want to pump out that book as fast as possible so they can take your $40 and then pump out the next one and take another $40. And like a great example of that lack of care, like the special editions, like there was something about like the special edition of Onyx Storm having like a stock image is like this big selling point instead of hiring an artist because they don't care. And they like announce the special edition super last minute or something.
I'm really excited for the new movie, I exclaimed with excitement. Little did I know, it would be a feature, a creature feature, featuring the creature.
And like before that, Iron Flame, like pages were like backwards, upside down, chapters were missing from some of the prints. There isn't a lot of care in putting out a quality product, even from like a business standpoint. They don't care about quality products, they just want your money. They're like taking advantage of fans. Because like Yaro's fans hate me. I don't hate them. You know what I'm saying? Well, no, that's not true. I hate the ones that call me slurs in my Instagram DM box. Like I wish for them an even more high quality gripping story with like a lush world building and interesting lore and maybe even a different variety of spice of scene. Whatever. I review those books. My core audience finds it funny, like what I have to say about it. But I wish for everyone like a good reading experience. And if you already had it with that stuff, that's dope. Good for you. Enjoy your Big Mac. I'm also not saying that it's all the author's fault or all big publishing's fault or all big tech's fault for the contentification of literature. I also think that it's on the consumer. I think one time in an older video, I said something like attention spans were getting shorter in relation to this term. And that was like a dumb thing to say. Because I don't actually think that people's like attention spans are getting shorter. I feel like maybe that veers into like ableism against like neurodivergent people or something. But what I should have said was that I think that people are so like impatient now. They're like hooked on their dopamine. They want that next hit, you know? So like that's why you have people on Book Talk who brag about only reading dialogue or like skipping paragraphs or whatever. They don't like reading. They like the feeling of finishing a book. So they consume like more please. And then you got like this poor author or this poor artist being like, yeah, I ain't got more. And then the consumer's like, all right, well, fuck you then. I'm on to the next place. Never eating at this restaurant again. I'm going to forget all about it. And yeah, that's kind of how it feels sometimes. It feels like all these like restaurants where you sit down and wait for your meal are going out of business, and you got all these like McDonald's and Wendy's popping up. And I'm not trying to say that like fast food is bad or you're bad for liking fast food. Like when we're not using that analogy anymore, I think it's important to remember that human beings are not content machines. Like, okay, you read Onyx Storm, you love it. Dope. I'm super happy for you. Are you willing to wait a year and a half, 2 years for the next one to come out so that Yaros has time to like really think through all the loose ends that she's like left in her plotting, can like really make sure that this is like her magnum opus. This is going to be like a turning point for the whole series. Are you willing to wait for that? Because if not, then I don't really think you love it. I think sometimes when people say to an artist like, oh, that thing you made was great, I can't wait for the next one, it kind of stresses them out because like they can only create so fast. Or like one of my friends is a music artist and he's like more successful than I'll ever be. But he like dropped an album one time, and then a couple weeks later, people were hitting him up like, yo, when's the next single coming out? It's like, bro, I just dropped the whole album. I don't think we have time to get into how like the album is dead. An even more personal example of like people treating creators and creatives and artists and authors, whatever else, is like content machines. I used to have a second channel like a year ago where I was reacting to Haikyuu and Mob Psycho. My dad was doing really bad medically, and I was trying to like help him and my mom. I was doing real bad mentally because I'm always doing real bad mentally. Trying to do my full-time job and manage 2 YouTube channels and like try to grow them both. Like, nah, it's too much. So I like stopped doing one of those. I had to delete the channel because people kept like coming from that channel to this one or finding me on Instagram or whatever and like banging on my door being like, yo, when you gonna get back to reacting to Haikyuu, man? I gotta hear your volleyball-based jokes. I am thankful that on this channel, like people are always like really patient with me when I have to like take a week off because of mental health or things just got really busy. Nobody really bothers me to like put something out at a certain time or ask me to react to or review a stupid show like Hell of a Boss or something. Yeah, man, what I'm trying to get at is that the lines between content and art, artists and influencers, just getting really blurry, and I feel like in that we're losing some depth, we're losing some quality in the stuff that's coming out now. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't really have a problem with it, other than I feel like we're getting a shortage of stuff that's getting into like the nitty gritty. I understand that some people like read, watch movies, watch TV, whatever, for escapism. They just want to turn off their brains and consume. It's not really my thing. Like that doesn't even make sense to me, especially with books. I feel like that's antithetical to reading. To like not engage with the material and think about it just feels like I'm not even reading. You know, like I like something like One Piece, not because stretchy pirate, big punchy and boobs, but because it examines like real world issues and real world themes through the lens of a really silly, fantastical world, and that's more what I'm interested in. I also think it's really funny that people don't like that about me. But when everything that's coming out, or at least everything that's being highlighted by the industries, is turn your brain off books, have a good barbecue music, and whatever the fuck that movie with J-Lo driving a robot is, I feel like culture suffers. Let me know your thoughts on how social media has affected publishing, movies, music, whatever. I'm curious. I don't really ask people. I don't really need to ask people questions usually because they'll just tell me that I'm stupid. I'm not going to talk about books next week. I think I'm going to watch a show this week and commentate on it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you to my super duper don't fretters, Lauren, Eden, Cassie, Oliver, Shade, Desi. If you want bonus content, access to my private Discord server, and just to help support the channel, make sure that I'm able to keep putting out as much content as I possibly can, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon at patreon.com/don'tfret_. If not, no worries, that's fine. But please, before you go, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Thank you again for watching this video. My name is D. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. Peace out.